Hello. How everyone's today? You got your coffee? Good. Okay. Yeah. So a little bit about me, just to calm everyone down a bit before, so people can have time to come in. So my name is Maya, and I'm a senior software engineer at Microsoft. And yeah, I'm a book author also. I have a book coming up called Learning View. And if you're into View or you haven't started View, just check it out. Anyway, I have to do this. I'm also an open source maintainer. I used to be a maintainer for Storefront UI, which is the e-commerce component library. That's why my talk today about. But since I joined Microsoft, I don't really have time much to talk about, to work on open source. Well, I'm also a Google developer expert and ambassador for Cloudinary, which is image optimization solutions. And you can follow me on Twitter or anything, and that's it about me. I hope it's clear. Okay, let's talk about component library. How many people here have ever used a component library? That's a lot. That's great. Do you know what is component library? What does that mean by component library? Yes. Okay. Sorry? Okay. That's also correct. That's one of the characters of it. So when I asked Google, I found out that people also ask what are component libraries. Because like us, we use it, we don't really know what it means, so we will ask about it. Anyway, so like you said, excuse me? Yeah. So what the component library really means, like you say, first thing, it has to be reusable. Meaning, if we have a sidebar component, it can be used for display a menu, or it also can be used for displaying the card. And it has to be stylable, which means if you have a notifications, you have to be able to style it. You have to provide some kind of like a different style on the same component, such as info state, warning state, arrow state, things that go according to the state of the applications. Customizable. People as users like to customize it because face it, we developer sometimes doesn't like other people's design. So sometimes we want to change to a different icon that doesn't have in the style guide or doesn't have in the library. Or we want to add to override a default icon to display a text for accessibility instead of just an icon. Or other things than that, and responsiveness. Well, yes, no, this is an important fact of a component library nowadays, that you have to support a different device, especially like mobile device or even the flip things, if you know what I mean, the Samsung flip. And it has to be isolated and testable. Well, we use component library, but we would not choose a component library if the component is not tested. And you cannot release it without testing a component, right? And lastly, also, actually, this has to be the first. Because accessibility is the most important thing in a component library nowadays. Without accessibility, your user won't be able to use your component and won't be able to use the app as a result. And if you say that accessibility is not important at first because they only have about 17 or 1% of the whole world population that have some problem with accessibility, you're actually wrong, because if you were in class like you, you have accessibility issue and you need support for the application. So if you're using live mode in your Visual Studio Code, or sorry, dark mode, you need accessibility support. So these are the 6 categories that define what is a component library. And from this, I would divide into 2 categories. Visual consistency. A component library needs to provide a visual consistency on top of everything, which means that you have to have a color palette, you have to have a style guide, typography, and anything come with it. And the second thing is functional consistency. What does that mean? That you don't make user wonder. Like, you don't take user by surprise. If it's a side menu and it have a button, and a backdrop. When the user clicks on the button, it has to close the side menu, and that's it, nothing else. You cannot open another tab, or you cannot display another pop-up because that's not what user expected. Make it clear that user know what it is, and they operate by what you call habit. And also same thing with product card. If you have a product card, it have an icon add to cart. When user click on add to cart, it only add this specific item to the cart. It's called the UX aspect of it. And UI and UX aspect is the two main things for a component library to be built successfully. And that comes to the things, when you start building a component library, many developers say that I just started with some button, and then I just build some modal on top of this, and user will use it, use my modal, that's it, I'm building a component library. No, that's not what it is. Building a component library, a good one, is actually a very small thing in the big scope. You're building component library, you have to take consideration of design system, style guide, and everything else. So, in fact, when you build a component library, you build a design system. And that's the talk. How much time did? Oh, 10 minutes. No, let's talk more. So, now come to the next question. You use component library. You choose a component library. What makes you, at the user, decide that this component library is for you? Anyone? No answer? Wow. Okay, so for us, for me, we found out that when we choose a component library, we usually based on these 5 categories: method goal, performance, customizability, scalability, and ease of use. So we're going to go through quickly these 5 aspects. The first one is meet the goal. What does that mean in meeting the goal? It means that how do I, at the author of component library, know that the user, what is the user looking for in order to offer it? Well, the truth is you don't. Even the user don't even know what they're looking for. They know they're looking for a component library. And usually they will test it until they feel like it, until it solves a very specific problem. So instead of trying to do things, you need to define goal. So is it right if we define that the component library will be a very big component library for everything? Have everything, have own the state-of-art component there and go for desktop? Well, this is too generic. You can try to build a next Bootstrap, but usually it doesn't work because we already have Bootstrap. And what other things I would suggest you to do is to try to scale it down and be more specific. For example, for Storefront UI, which is our the component library that I was maintaining, the first version of it, it was meant to be an e-commerce component library only, which means it's focused on e-commerce specific, building on the component for only e-commerce, and it's prioritized customization because we understand that company that is e-commerce industry, they want to have their look and feel themselves. They don't want to look like each other. And as we all understand, for e-commerce, mobile first is always important. So when we develop the component library, we design the component to fit the mobile device first before we extend it to desktop. And that's how we define goal for our case. And once we define the goal, we start planning and we start to define the style guides with designer ourselves and then implementation. And then we continue doing the integration to revisit and continue on. The next aspect of a component library is performance. When we talk about performance in component library, usually people will say it has to be faster, it has to take less time, it has to be beautiful and so on. But performance doesn't really have only about fast loader. Not really. For component library, I would say they have 2 aspects of performance. The first one is development, and the second one is delivery. The development is, what important development is the number of props, whether you're building a standalone component, dependency, implement approach, code structure, all of these are very, very important for your team. Whoever is the next developer to come into your team and take over and start building new feature or fixing bugs. And also for open source component library, this is more crucial because people from outside of your project have to be able to come in, get on their feet, understand the code structure, understand what is dependency, what you are using, what code structure you're using in order to help you develop your library and delivery faster. And this affects everything. And once your component library has been shipped or delivered to the end user, then what you can do to control performance at this point is more about installation, consume side, bundle speed, and loading them. This is affecting directly to the performance of your user application. And these two aspects is actually what will form a good component library. Okay, the next aspect is customizability. Well, as developer, we always want to try to find the limit. We always try to test the component to see how it failed, where it failed, and then we will either laugh at it or feel issue and say, hey, your component doesn't work, But anyway, so how do we provide customizability to a developer, to the component? Well, the first part of customizability is color and padding and typography and even size. Like you can provide 1,000 different sizes, you're still missing one size. The developer may or may not like want this size. That's called utility customization. Color and theme, typography, padding, margin, and size, all of this, you have to be able to provide customization. The second part of it is icon, functionality, content design, anything that is more about look and feel and very specific to a user need. So how do we do customizability in this case? For utility, well, styling, typography, you may think about CSS class. But no, CSS class is not enough. Again, we have the problem of CSS class order, and then you don't want to use important everywhere. Well, in Microsoft, we have some component library called Fluent UI, and they have a huge, they have a lot of class, and to override their class is really hell. And we have to use the important almost everywhere, and that's where I really hate it. So you may think CSS variable, that's a good option, but since you are using an external library dependency, your end user may encounter this error. And actually, I got this one. And I'm the maintainer of the library. So one time, I decided to try my library in a demo project. And the first go, the first view, I got this error. The SCSS loader or compiler doesn't load. It doesn't work. No idea why. I'll fix it, but in the end, it was very, very bad. And so what you should do is using CSS native APIs, because CSS in the recent years have been very, very good, very improved. They have CSS class, have CSS variable, functions, containers, even nesting. And with nesting, you don't need SCSS anymore, because you already have it inside the browser. Don't need to pre-compile those type of things. Another example for functional customizability is like we have a button, and then user want to have a different icon, and then you have an icon with a different position, and then another size, and then another color, and then another prop that requires like just an event on top of the button only, and more. This doesn't end here. No matter how much props you can provide, the user will always have more demand for more props. So what you should try to do is try to make something that it can cover 80% of the use case, and then leave the 20 for the user to override. This is an example when you use Vue.js. You can do the same thing with React, whether you have a one component specific with a default styling and default props, and then you also allow user to actually modify the children, the content of the button itself. However, one downside of this approach is that if you have a style guide and your component has to have a style guide, one user do this, they will lose entirely support for accessibility, and they will lose also other support for styling, for anything that your component provide by default. So here is the trick. You need to try to be not specific too much and not be over-engineering by being too generic. And finding the balance here is like an ongoing battle. User will always say, I want more prop, but I want your style guide, but I want my customization. And you always say, but I cannot provide you everything. So this part is something that you really need to work it out. Scalability, how user can use your component library and scale it. Well, anyone here heard about Tailwind, right? Know about Tailwind? So Tailwind is the very low-level CSS framework. The reason I say I keep using Tailwind as an example here is because they really have a set of, they really divided their styling and their component into set of component and stuff. So here for the scaling, for component library, we can do even better. We can scale the logic and the UI display into two things. In this example, I have scaled the logic into hooks. And the component itself is just to display the UI. And whoever wants to use my component to build a product gallery, they can use their own API specific. And to build a web page like this, a product gallery like this, I just need to plug them in like I'm plugging a Lego pieces with product gallery, product card, search box, use search, use cards, use favorite, and then I will have an item with search box, card item, favorite item, and if user wants something extra, they can pick from your library a logic or a component and put it together. This can be a bit more generic, but if you build it right, it will be generic but specific to user. Another example is how to build a checkout wizard. So I can give them a wizard component with 3 different logic hooks, whether they can plug it in themselves, wizard step, wizard header and footer, and then the user will just use this, build on top of this a checkout wizard with their order API and payment API, and then they can use the wizard step to wrap around on their component review, payment, and so on, and make it into a complete checkout wizard component. And if they want to change something, they just take up one component and that's it. The last aspect is ease of use. So basically, you have 3 minutes to make everyone happy. So the first aspect of ease of use that make people happy, how you deliver it. So for us, we just ship it like a sheep. But in fact, no, just joking. So in fact, we have 2 options. Whether first you can use bundle code, which what it means is that you ship the whole library as is after compile in JavaScript, and which the downside of this is that you have absolutely no control over the code and the CSS to bundle together. Later on, if someone uses your library, they have to build their own mechanism to tree shake it, or they won't be able to tree shake it. And that's the downside of it. Their application might end up become very large because of your library. The other way approach is to ship the raw source code in your package, which means the user can just import a button or a wizard or a modal whenever they need. And they have full control over the bundle code. The downside for this is that you need to have a bundle tool to combine them together. But again, unless you build for WordPress developer, you always need to have Webpack of it. Okay, so the last aspect is documentation. Yeah. So we have 6 things that we need to pay attention here. So I know all of these are very important and very hard to write, but again, you can use Copilot. But still, you still need to have documentation. It's not only about writing documentation, it's also about making everything ready to use, example, clear and good example. And whatever you can automate it. And lastly, some tips. Lazy load only when you need to lazy load. Oh, sorry. Up. This is so slow. Think developer first. And yep, and don't invent. If you have to use a dependency, use it wisely. And lastly, whatever you do, plan your component. Don't jump right into code. Plan it ahead and use native API. And pay attention to accessibility. And that's it. Thank you.